Mitt Romney's reaction to the Middle East situation is provoking some comparisons to pivotal moments of foreign policy in past presidential races. Here's one that's worth remembering. It was April of 1980. President Jimmy Carter had ordered a military rescue mission to bring back the 53 American citizens held hostage in Iran. On April 24th, the mission ended in disaster when a helicopter crashed, killing 8 U.S. service members. A day later, in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, President Carter's rival, then Republican presidential candidate Ronald Reagan, took a modest tone in reacting to the failed mission, saying this.
It's a difficult day for all of us as Americans. Our hearts go out to the families of the brave men who were lost and to those who lie injured. We sympathize with the families of the hostages whose burden now is even greater. It's time for us as a nation and as a people to stand united. It's a day for quiet reflection. It's a moment when words should be few and confined essentially to our prayers.
It wasn't until 6 days later after the tragedy that Reagan went on the political attack, hitting President Carter for the administration's policy on Iran.
It's very difficult to understand why it took so many months to take any action at all. During the first few days, the president should have determined whether diplomatic steps would be sufficient to free our citizens. When those steps failed, decisive action should have been taken promptly. Instead, Mr. Carter has announced a variety of moves he now plans to make. But then he delayed, vacillated, and frequently canceled those actions.
Did then candidate Reagan's reaction provide a roadmap that Romney could have followed this week? Let's bring in our panel. Molly Ball, national political reporter for The Atlantic. Alfonso Aguilar, executive director for the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles and a former chief of the U.S. Office of Citizenship under President W. Bush, and former Obama administration aide Daniela Gibbs-Leger as vice president of the Center for American Progress. Alfonso, let me start with you. You see those Reagan clips, and do you say to yourself, what if Mitt Romney had followed that path?
Well, yes, I think he could have waited a couple of days. I agree with the general point that he made, but I think he should have waited a couple of days to go on the attack. I think when something like this happens, you have to identify with the president. He's the commander-in-chief. Certainly, there are big points to be made that a policy of appeasement, of apology, doesn't help. It weakens our...
You think this is making Romney having a harder time now making this argument because he still has to deal with sort of the process story?
Oh, absolutely. I would have waited a couple of days and given a broader speech about how the policy of appeasement and apologies weakens our role across the globe and encourages the type of situation that happened in Egypt and Libya.
Molly, let's talk about, though, the larger conversation here. There is I think, larger debate that's going to be had about, for instance, the Arab Spring. What we did in Egypt, was it worth it? What we did in Libya, was it worth it?
Yeah, well, I think Alfonso is right that that debate has been obscured by this question of timing, which in the big picture is not really a policy issue. I mean, who cares whether it was now or 24 hours from now? But the reason people care about that is because the major critique that Romney has made of Obama is one of leadership and one of tone, saying that this whole idea of leading from behind and making the U.S. look weak is essentially not about policies, because on policy, Romney has, with a little bit of lack of clarity, but he has supported, for example, the action in Libya. But what he's saying is that the United States needs to take a stronger, more forceful tone. And in a way, the fact that he came out so quickly to make this statement against the president's policy is of a piece with this attitude that the U.S. needs to be more aggressive, more forthcoming, can't hang back and wait for events before deciding how to respond to things on the international stage.
Daniela, how concerned are you now, though, that there is a larger debate here and frankly, the Arab Spring, which, look, the president, Mubarak would still be in the power if the president hadn't nudged him out. I mean, he was the final sort of, and it was the only way Mubarak, when he knew he lost the United States, there was no way he could stay in power. Now that's going to be up for debate.
You know, I don't think that the campaign is very concerned about this debate. In fact, I think they welcome it. When you look at polls and you talk to people on foreign policy, President Obama is much stronger than Mitt Romney, and I think these past couple of days have demonstrated why. You know, I think that Governor Romney has been a candidate for so long that maybe he forgot that when you govern, sometimes things are nuanced, and sometimes you have to take a breath and wait till all the facts play out before you step in it, which is really what he did. As far as what's happening over there, I think what the president said on Telemundo was right. You know, we have to wait and see what's happening. Things are changing overseas, and we don't know how things are going to turn out yet. And I think this rush to judgment, this rush to say, oh, the president's appeasing and all this, I really think it does a disservice to the conversation.
You refer to the Telemundo interview. I mean, something that the president said, which I think was very revealing. Remember that one of our main allies in the region, West Egypt, was Mubarak. The president supported the Arab Spring, and now in the Telemundo interview, he says Egypt is not an ally, but it's not an enemy. So it's not an ally anymore. So why did we support
what
the
American president? I mean, I asked this of Mitt Romney. What American president was going to be on the wrong side of small d democratic history?
Exactly, and Richard Haas this morning said the same thing. So when you talk to foreign policy experts, I think they agree with the president. We just don't know right now how it's going to turn out.
Well, you know, it's a very delicate situation, and I think we should support our friends and allies in the region. And, you know, now we have a government who we don't know we can trust.
And the test is coming with Saudi Arabia. We know it's not a matter of if or when it comes to Saudi Arabia. All right, let's bring back the panel. We're short on time. Molly Ball, Alfonso Aguilar, and Daniela Gibbs-Leger. Alfonso, I want to start with you. I want to get you to react to a prediction President Obama made on Telemundo last night. We're going to hear the rest of the interview later today, but he believes after the election, he'll be able to find Republicans to work with him to get comprehensive immigration reform. Do you believe he's right?
Well,
if he wins.
If he's reelected, yeah. Which, look, the reality is, I don't know what the president thinks. Who's he to lecture Republicans? He had an opportunity to push immigration reform the first year of his administration, and he did not. And he's deported more people than any other president in history. So why is he criticizing Republicans? I don't know.
Molly? Mitt Romney, if he gives a major policy speech before the first debate on October 3rd, will it be on foreign policy or will it be on details for his tax plan?
Well, a couple days ago, I would have said the tax plan. I think either way, there's a lot of pressure on Romney right now from nervous Republicans to go big, make some kind of big statement. Maybe now it will be foreign policy in order to clarify the events of the last few days, but there's a lot of pressure on him to do something policy-oriented.
Daniela, in Florida, the Obama campaign is going all in a way that I don't think 6 months ago they would have. They're trying to outspend Romney there. Do they have the money to keep it up?
I think so, and given their vulnerability on Medicare, absolutely.
All right, shameless plugs. Danielle, I'll start with you.
Speaking of Medicare, my colleagues at the Center for American Progress Action Fund released a report that got a lot of attention showing how Mitt Romney's plan on Medicare would seriously hurt seniors.
All right, Alfonso.
You mentioned how Bernanke may announce another series of quantitative easing. This is what got us in the financial crisis. We have to go back to the gold standard. The GOP platform calls for a commission to consider the gold standard.
Jack Kemp,
heard it here.
Jack Kemp is smiling from above. Molly.
Speaking of the debates, if people are getting ready to watch the debates, they need to read my colleague James Fallow's piece in the last Atlantic.
The guy's done it every presidential cycle. It's a great pregame. That's it for this edition of the Daily Rundown. Tomorrow.